Good morning. Are you ready? Can I, Leanne? Where'd you come in from this morning, Leanne?
From Beaverton.
Can you hear me? Am I on? So, Leanne, can you tell us why we're here today?
For leadership networking across the state.
I like that. Leadership networking across the state. Thank you, Leanne. That was brave. If we haven't met, I'm Chris Coleman, and I'm going to be your guide through the day. Anybody read this new book, Astoria, by Peter Stark? Handful of you. The whole title of the book is Astoria, John Jacob Astor, and Thomas Jefferson's Lost Pacific Empire. And it starts in 1808, 3 years after Lewis and Clark made their way out here. And Astor came up with the idea of funding two exploratory parties, one overland and one around the tip of South America, to establish trading posts at the mouth of the Columbia. He had this crazy idea that if you could do that and capture the fur trade in the western part of the U.S., that you could create a global trading empire that had never been seen before on the planet. Thomas Jefferson actually believed that what we could do was create a sister democracy, not an expansion of the U.S., but a sister democracy that would be sympathetic to the United States. What I find astounding about that story is that the first folks out here was a collaboration between government and business. Awesome. And it was also a dream of prosperity. A lot of the folks on that first party, I mean, they knew they could get killed by scalping, by freezing, by starving, by being lost, by drowning, by hypothermia. The odds of survival were lower than the odds of being killed. So why go? I mean, sure, maybe it was for the adventure of it. You think of an astronaut, what's out there? Only a handful of Europeans had ever been out here. The coast, the northwest coast of the U.S. was the last coastline on the planet to be mapped. Didn't know that. But it was a dream of prosperity, of creating a better life for themselves, their families, their kids. And what I find heartening is that here we are 200 years later talking about the same thing. And certainly we have created an incredible global empire, trade empire, facing the Pacific, and we got a lot of progress to celebrate. We have a lot of things to work on. And so we're going to start today the conversation with my friend John Carter, who is the chairman of Schnitzer Steel, and he's also the current chairman of the Oregon Business Plan. Mr. Carter. And to my left, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Malia Wasson.
What do you do? Malia is the president for Oregon and Southwest Washington for U.S. Bank. So John, let's start with you.
Wait a minute,
Oh,
Chris.
applause.
Yeah, thanks. But Chris,
Yes.
my chair is a different color than the two of yours.
I think that was intentional.
Okay. I like to mess with him.
Yeah, we just want to
The
make
stage
sure you don't
directing
get
thing he does
too
is-
big for your britches over there. So, John, the business plan started about 12 years ago. What was the original idea?
Well, the original purpose was to put together the business community around a common agenda for the prosperity of the state. And it's outlined in your policy playbook, which you all have, and in the plan framework. It was to provide a goal, a vision, and a strategy to achieve the goal and vision. And we called that the 4 Ps: people, place, productivity, and pioneering innovation. The last P is a little bit of a stretch, but you know,
Yeah,
3
I
Ps
buy it,
and
I
I
buy
didn't
it.
seem to do it. So that was purpose, and it creates a way for business leaders to get together with elected officials and other interested parties to create that agenda to improve the economy for the state. It's interesting, we're the only state that has such a process and a plan. And certainly the only state that has a forum like this every year to bring together the business community and elected leaders to create an agenda for the state and the business community. And I think I'd like to start out by saying we owe a great vote of thanks to all of you who are here and participate in that because it's an unusual effort and one we're able to do every year. So thanks for being here.
And Malia, the title today is We're in It Together. What's that mean for you?
Well, as we know, we don't get anywhere alone, and this is a great theme for today. In particular, the meaning, there are about 3 levels in my mind. First of all, and most importantly, the partnership between business and the elected officials. And many electeds are in this room today, showing their commitment to this and these initiatives. Also, it's within the business community itself. Partnerships are really important. That's why we have the Oregon Business Plan Steering Committee, made up of representatives of the large business associations, but also various interests around the state. And then lastly, and today, very importantly, we are going to be focusing on the partnership between urban and rural and provide the focus on what we need to do to help those communities around the state. So that's what it means to me.
Great. So if you look back 4 years ago, if you were sitting in the summit 4 years ago, we were talking about stagnant job growth, decline in wages, decline in state investment. What's changed, John? How are we doing? What's changed over the last year?
Well, I think there's a couple of things we can look at, some data that will help, and it also is a tribute over the last 4 years, the cooperation and support we've gotten from our elected officials, especially Governor Kitzhaber, and the support from the start from Senator Wyden. But if you look at our current job growth trends, and there's a chart on the screen, it will show you that we're creating jobs on an even better pace than what we set forth in the plan 4 years ago. If you could see also that that trend line continues to be very positive. The other good news that we have is that public revenues are up. There's another slide, the next slide here. Will tell you that after years of decline, we're actually investing more in education, which of course is the key to the future of the state and our citizens. And I think the case can be made that we're doing a better job of investing those public dollars because the reforms that the legislature has made have resulted in the next biennium another $400 million for expenditures on public services that would not otherwise have been there.
Wow.
And you can see that.
Wow, that's amazing. And Malia, there have been some particular successes in the traded sector industries in particular. You want to cite any of those?
Sure, absolutely. As a banker, I'm fortunate I get to work with all industries, sizes of companies, and what I would say is our companies in Oregon in general have done a great job of, through the recession, reducing their cost structures so that they could be profitable at lower sales levels. But the traded sector, as Chris points out, is really key to us. It means companies that will bring dollars into the state, new dollars. And so those industries are tech industries. It's booming. Intel's a great example, but we have a lot of exciting software companies that have come into the region. We have, of course, footwear, sports apparel. Nike and Columbia Sportswear have grown dramatically. And then we have the food industries and beverage industry. They've grown 20% in the last 12 years. And then we can't forget, and near and dear to my heart, is the wood products industry. Manufacturers have done a great job of weathering a much more prolonged recession than even the recession we refer to. And then lastly, we need to remember that we have a lot of manufacturing companies in Oregon. We're blessed with that, but we probably don't pay enough attention and realize their importance. Schnitzer Steel's an example of a manufacturer providing family wage jobs, very important. So we're doing really well. We're on a good trajectory.
So everything is solved and we can all go home now. So John, what are the concerns for you? What are the clouds? What are the places we need to be focused on?
I'm always glad to get the good tidings question. I think that
You're so good at it.
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things that we're doing very well. It's good to celebrate our successes, but there are some areas where we have a lot more work to do. And one of the things that we need to do is focus on the traded sector. As Malia said, Oregon thrives when we sell our products and services outside our borders. And the faster growing markets, fastest markets in the world are outside our borders. As a small population state, we need to be connected to those markets, and we need to be able to sell into them for our economy to grow. So to compete in those markets, we need to put more emphasis on our infrastructure and policies that support our traded sector. It's a huge opportunity for Oregon, and we don't want to miss it. If you look at the manufacturing area, again, that was referenced earlier, infrastructure for manufacturers also means the regulatory environment. And we have to be careful that we don't burden companies in this state with inefficiencies and delays that really harm their competitiveness in these international markets. The other thing is that while the job growth's very impressive, there are some hidden issues in the mix of those jobs that we need to address. If you look at slide number 3, which is up on your screen, you'll see that our per capita income is still lagging. We compare it here to Washington. The national average is the blue line, and we're still behind the national average by about 10%, even with the job creation that we've had. We also have a trend line that's not very positive. So it's a big gap to fill, and part of that reason, I believe, is because of the geography of our job growth. The rural area of our state is still suffering. Part of it is also the lack of growth in the center core businesses. We all like to celebrate small businesses and the growth in small business area, but people kind of forget that those small businesses generally are growing because of large businesses or larger businesses that demand their services and the people that are employed by those businesses. So the area that we need to work on is those areas where family wage jobs, the manufacturing sector where technical skills are well paid. And then I think the other area is that partially explains this is we do have an economy that doesn't have some of the very high paid sectors in the economic arena. And that means that we don't get an artificial lift from those sectors that pay extraordinarily large numbers of people, lots of money, and that's generally because we're not one of the core larger metropolitan areas in the country. So if you look at the good part of that, part of the reason for the disparity is the growth in startup company jobs, and that's a very positive thing. But people forget that new company entrepreneurs often work for love and pizza and not necessarily pay the kind of wages.
I told him not to say that, by the way.
Often don't kind of pay the kind of wages that helps our public revenue stream. I guess the other thing I would point out is that while our poverty rate is down from 2011, it's still, again, well above our objective of lowering it to 10%. And of course, we'd like to do even better than the 10%, but we've still got a long way to go in that area.
So Malia, one of the things we're talking about today is strengthening the pathways between the educational system and the workforce, which plays a key role in addressing the poverty issue, does it not?
Absolutely. Slide 4. Education provides the path out of poverty. You'll notice there's a very real relationship between education levels and income levels. And our educational pathways to date really haven't done a good job of aligning with the jobs that we're creating. So those jobs either go unfilled or they get filled by people coming in from out of state. So today you're going to hear a lot about how we improve our education on the early side to increase the graduation rates in high school and college, but also career technical education and STEM and how they can help us get people ready for the jobs that I was just talking about.
And John, you referred to the geography of our wages. I was really curious to read in some of the background material for today that the per capita income in the rural part of Oregon in the mid-'70s was well above the national average. Today it's 76% of the national average. So can you talk a little bit about some of the struggles and what we're going to do to try to turn some of that around?
Well, as you know, that's one of the reasons on the card that you all have, that's one of the reasons, one of our priorities for 2015 is putting our natural resources to work. We need to strengthen the economy across the whole state in order to make a difference in that per capita income. And we'll look at some of those opportunities today. I guess I'd add that when I was growing up in Pendleton longer ago than you'll remember, Chris.
Oh, somebody's from
Is
Pendleton.
that for his age or where he grew up?
The health of the rural economy.
John was a rodeo champion. You know that?
Yeah, right. I was the horse.
Oh, I could say so much right now, but I'm not going to.
The rural economy in those days was actually even better, substantially better than in the 70s on the figures that you quote. And it's been a very rough few decades for rural Oregon. Part of that, obviously, as people know, has been the polarization of views about how we address our natural resources. Some of the things that we're seeing today, with a little help from both the business community and the political leadership, has been more successful efforts to find a common ground where we can utilize, put our natural resources to work, and at the same time preserve the environmental benefits and the natural beauty of the state that Oregonians treasure. We really do, I think, owe those folks in rural Oregon the same kind of emphasis and focus that we have on the urban areas to improve their economic lot. And there are positive signs that that's actually starting to happen, and we'd like to accelerate that today.
Great. We also, John, you've mentioned, we've really regained some jobs in the manufacturing sector, but there are a lot of opportunities around the state if we can make some key investments in infrastructure projects. We're going to spend some quality time today hearing about some specific examples, opportunities, and challenges. So Malia, so all of these wonderful people that have carved out the day to come and hear you.
They didn't come to hear me.
What do you want from them besides sitting and listening attentively? What do you hope for?
Well, the truth is, all the people sitting in this room have the capability and the power to choose to help with these initiatives and make a difference in Oregon. And what I think we need to do is focus on what we agree on. That means crossing party lines, urban, rural lines, and yes, business association lines. And no one is a better example of a leader who focuses on where we agree than John Carter sitting here, and he's going to kill me for doing this because he doesn't know I'm going to do it. He has been chair of the business plan now for 3 years, and his leadership has been extraordinary. And I would ask that you help me in thanking him for his leadership. This is his last summit.
Come on, she had to. Come on, man. Thank you, Malia.
I'm going to pay later for that. So really, what I'd ask of you, my call to action is, as you listen throughout the day, ask yourself what you can do to help with these initiatives on infrastructure, education, and really focusing on how we can help our rural communities thrive and how we get Oregonians out of poverty and into the mainstream. So that's my call to action. Let's do it.
Great. So we're moving your focus throughout the day, and that's really, I think of it as moving the front row around the room a little bit. So no matter where you're sitting, you get kind of a bird's eye view. So when we shift the focus, feel free to, you can use the screens, you can turn your neck, you can rearrange your chair, like take a breath, wake up. And so now I want to turn your attention over here to stage number 3 to welcome the guy who came up with the idea for the business summit, U.S. Senator Ron Wyden.